Today's video is sponsored by Mobalystics. Mobalystics is a free companion app for a variety of games, and they are now supporting Destiny 2, providing descriptions for things like exotics, tier lists, and even nasty builds. Matter of fact, you can find today's build available for reference on their site, with everything broken down in text form. This is a fantastic resource, especially for my new players, and we're extremely excited to see all the new features they'll be adding in the coming months. So again, if you're interested in seeing today's build broken down in text form, and hell, if you want to watch today's video while looking at this build, you can head on over to Mobalystics website by clicking on the link down below in the description. And from there, you can download the app today. Once again, thank you to Mobalystics for sponsoring today's video. So in Season of the Haunted, we had a build named the Mustang build. And believe me guys, it lived up to the hype. It literally made you feel like you were Colonel Mustang himself. By the way, big shout out to Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Go watch it if you haven't already. But with everything that's changed in Lightfall, this build has been another build that's also been changed. Today we're going to be revisiting our favorite Incinerator snap build, and what we're really trying to down is whether or not the changes for this build made it better or worse. And I do want to mention that a version of this build is definitely still powerful, but it does require some tinkering. So here's our Mustang 2.0 build. Now we're back on Dawnblade, taking advantage of Well of Radiance, although that's not really required at all. You could use Daybreak if you want. Keep in mind, that's a pretty weak super, even in this sandbox. What you will need though is your Incinerator snap melee and solar grenades, as without these, this build does not work. Also, it's best to go with healing rifts here. For aspects, we're using Touch of Flame. This will make our solar grenades last longer, as well as periodically emit blobs of lava around its perimeter. And it's a fantastic grenade for clearing groups of ads and locking down areas, as the duration of the grenade is very long with this build. Now for your aspects, you can use either Icarus Dash or Heat Rises. In our previous Mustang build, we actually had you floating around, basically in the air at all times, raining down these Incinerator snaps back to back. Unfortunately though, with the difficulty changes combined with a nerf to resilience, being in the air, it's just kind of risky. 9 times out of 10, you pretty much die. So we don't really need Heat Rises here, and the melee regeneration that it provides. Our fragments though will be Ember of Ashes, which makes us apply more Scorch, Ember of Resolve, which will grant us Cure on grenade final blows, Ember of Singeing, which makes our class ability recharge faster when we scorch targets, Ember of Searing, which will grant us melee energy and create a fire sprite when we defeat scorched targets. Now for our exotic weapon of choice, we're actually going to be subbing out Skyburner's Oath. Again, back in the day, Skyburner's was one of the only weapons we had that applied Scorch. Instead though, we're going to be slotting in something different. Agger's Scepter. I know, completely different change here. We're going from a very obvious choice like Skyburner's, which applies Scorch and deals solar damage, to a weapon that's Stasis. Now I'm not saying that Skyburner's isn't good, it's just for what we're utilizing here, the 2.0 version of this build, quite a lot has changed. Now back to Agger's Scepter. The trait found on this weapon is Agger's Call, which states that final blows of this weapon generate a slow burst around the defeated targets. It also has Riga's Refrain, which transfers ammo to this weapon's magazine from reserves when getting stasis final blows. And the main reason we're using this is for Agger's Call, that slowing burst that will freeze targets caught in it. Now this is very important for 2 reasons. One, we'll touch on now. The other we're going to go over when we talk about which exotic armor piece to pair with it. The first reason is freezing enemies is important because Incinerator Snap is just not as powerful as it once was due to the difficulty changes Lightfall brought to the game. Now back in Season of the Haunted, we were able to run seasonal content with this build because the snap would incinerate enemies like the name implies. Nowadays though, the seasonal content is much tougher. An Incinerator Snap does not one-shot any groups of ads like it used to. You also have to deal with enemies moving around a lot, which can cause your snap melee to just outright miss, which is very annoying. To rectify this problem though, we add the freeze mechanic to this build with Agger's Scepter. That way you're pretty much guaranteed to land your snap melee and snag some kills because the target won't be moving and they'll also shatter. Now to our exotic armor piece. Our previous build utilized Claws of Hamkar for a second charge of Incinerator Snaps. Pretty nice considering you can do back-to-back melees. We're going to be changing that out because it's just not needed here. We're going to be able to get our melee right back. So having 2 charges really doesn't make much of a difference here. Instead though, we're going to be utilizing Sunbracers. Now I know you've probably already been seeing Sunbracers do some crazy things like Melting Riven in a single damage phase. But these exotic gauntlets come with the Perkilium Spirals, which increases the duration of solar grenades. Also, solar melee kills grant unlimited solar grenade energy for a brief time. So now we're mixing more grenades into this build than we did in the past. And when you score a single melee kill with Incinerator Snap, you'll have the word Sunbracers ready appear on the left side of your screen with a 5-second countdown. Now, if you throw a grenade before that countdown reaches 0, the countdown will refresh to 5 seconds, and you'll be able to chunk grenades infinitely until that countdown is over. And the max grenades you can throw during this time is 5, including the first grenade that you threw. through. And remember, all of these grenades are benefiting from Touch of Flame, so they'll all have those lava blobs emitting from them. This also allows you to cover entire floors in fire, or even lock down multiple spawn doors at once, so that enemies just walk into the hellfire as soon as they spawn in. Now, because these solar grenades are such a huge part of this build, this is the second reason Aggers is such a good pairing here. The only issue with solar grenades is that enemies can simply walk out of them if they can survive long enough. But with Aggers though, before you even start your Sunbracer grenade chain, just fire off Aggers for a bit to freeze a group of enemies. That way, when you start throwing those grenades, they'll be frozen for a bit and also shatter for more damage. Again, we're going for that same fire and ice build. It's almost like conditional finality. Now for our artifact perks, here you don't need a lot of specific ones, just authorized mods, solar grenades, and you can use whatever else you want. But jumping onto our armor mods, starting with our helmets, we've got 2 Ashes to Asset mods, which will give us more super energy on grenade final blows. And when you can throw 5 grenades at a time, you get your super back very fast, guys. We also have hands on, which will give us more super energy on melee kills as well. And considering that this is still a Mustang 2.0 build, you are going to be using that snap melee as often as you can, as this build is really tied around that. But also with this build and with our setup, as long as you throw 1 solar grenade at a group of enemies, you'll be getting 90% of your melee charge right back. That way, when you've thrown your 5 solar grenades from Sunbracer's perk, you'll have that melee ready to go easily to then start the grenade chain all over again. So you're going to be utilizing your snap melee a lot here, which is why I think it's really beneficial to gain bonus super from it. Now in our gloves, we have firepower and heavy-handed. So both the grenades and melee final blows will create orbs of power. We also have bolstering detonation, which will give us class ability energy when we cause damage with a grenade. Now in our chest piece, we just simply have some resist mods. Again, slot this out depending on what you're going against. And for our boots, we have better already, recuperation, and absolution. So then when we pick up an orb of power, we're starting health regeneration, we're replenishing some health, as well as reducing cooldowns for our abilities at once. And then in our class item, we have 2 outreach mods for even more melee cooldown reduction when we use our class ability, as well as a Reaper mod, which will make our next weapon final blow spawn an orb after we use our class ability. So what's the gameplay loop look like? Guys, this is very easy since we're really not using any armor charges at all. So you don't have to worry about whether or not you have an armor charge ever. How it works is you simply getting a kill with Aggers to slow and freeze surrounding enemies. This will make it nearly impossible to miss your Incinerator snap, and then proceeding to use your melee, which will then proc Sunbracer's perk, allowing us to throw a max of 5 solar grenades back to back, and all of these grenades last longer thanks to that increase in duration from Touch of Flame, as well as the increased duration from Sunbracers, and they all emit blobs of lava thanks to Touch of Flame as well. Now every grenade kill you get will cure you because of Ember of Resolve, and the scorch damage that you deal from any source, including these grenades, will feed onto your class and melee ability energy thanks to Ember Singeing and Searing, and you're dealing more scorch stacks, which equals more damage thanks to Ember of Ashes. Now each grenade and melee kill will generate an orb from firepower and heavy-handed, as well as grant you extra super energy from Ashes assets and hands-on. And you get even more class ability regeneration when causing damage with grenades thanks to bolstering detonation. And when you use your healing rift, you also reduce your melee cooldown thanks to outreach, as well as gain the ability to spawn an orb from Reaper. And again, every single orb that you pick up is going to be topping off your health, starting health regeneration, and reducing cooldowns for all of your abilities. You're not going to have an issue at all with ability regeneration here, guys. Now, once you throw all 5 grenades, pop a rift if you need to heal, start over with Aggers kills or a couple kills to freeze enemies, and then score that Incinerator snap melee, and boom, you've got 5 more grenades to throw and already frozen in place enemies as easy targets. Now, this is literally an endless loop. And what the idea here for this build, guys, is that it's a room clearing machine, and you can get creative. You can literally hang these grenades above doorways, throw them at the ceiling so that the lava rains down on enemies, and that's really where you're going to get these stacking damage to targets, as you cannot stack solar grenade damage on a single target. Like if you throw solar grenades at a single target over and over again, you're going to get that impact damage, but you're not going to get these stacking burn damage, which is why you throw it in places like the ceiling and it rains that lava down, that fire down, and that's what's going to allow you to stack up crazy amounts of damage. The problem here for so many people is that ads tend to move out of the way, which is why Aggers Scepter is such an excellent weapon to use here. On top of that, you also have Aggers and its ability to counter overload champions thanks to its stasis slow. You also got Shatter and Freeze to deal with unstoppable champions, and if you want, guys, you can even swap out Ember of Ashes with Ember of Torches if you need Radiant for barrier champions. And considering how fast you're going to be getting your super back, guys, you also have the Aggers Scepter Catalyst, which drains your super energy when hitting your alternate weapon action, but it overflows the magazine and it empowers the beam with bonus damage and literally constantly emits slow and freeze to targets until you actually run out of ammo in your mag or your super energy runs out, or if the weapon is stowed. So guys, give it a go. Again, I know it's a weird combination. We're taking stasis, merging it here with solar. It doesn't seem like something that should work, but in this situation, it actually does. Link down below, guys. And again, if you're interested in any of our builds, we have an entire playlist dedicated to every single build we have covered in the game. Again, some of these are having to be updated with Lightfall. So if you see some builds rolling out here very, very soon, it's a good chance it's actually an old build that's been slightly modified with the new expansion, considering elemental wells are gone, as well as charged with light. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.